Hey guys, welcome back. It's Ripe again, back with more Entitled People stories. If a crazy Karen neighbor let herself into your house, used your hot tub, and then called the police to claim that you are the intruder, what would you do? Let's dive right into the title story. And the first one goes like this. A little while ago, I bought a terraced house in a close-knit cul-de-sac. I bought it because I quite liked the horseshoe design of the buildings, and it meant that there was a huge amount of space at the back. This was my third house, and I don't think I've ever bought a house for practicality, purely because the architecture was very interesting. I once bought a top floor flat because it was practically all glass. Anyway, I ended up selling it and moving out because not only did it get ridiculous during the summer, but when it rained it was so damn loud. Then I moved into a house that was a converted church. I did not actually move into the church, which had been converted into a few luxury apartments, but into the building that used to be the church hall, or where the church hall used to stand. I later found out they actually knocked the old building down and built a whole new structure. But now I found myself in a horseshoe-shaped cul-de-sac and being forced into a close relationship with my neighbors. Because the front doors were so close together, you knew exactly when the people next door were going out or coming home. That was not too much of a problem for me. I did not mind the noise, but what I did mind was that one of my neighbors was a proper self-entitled Karen. For some reason, this Karen really liked my house and had wanted to buy it back when it was for sale. But I just got there quicker. She was not happy about that and would bring it up in conversation whenever possible. When I would go to take the bins out, she would be there smiling and waving at me. "Oh hey, good evening, did you know I was going to buy your house?" Or whenever I was doing the gardening, "Oh hey, pleasant afternoon by the way, I still want to buy your house if you ever feel like selling." I had literally just moved in. I would be hanging around the front door saying farewell to friends or family, and she would come out of the blue. "Oh hey, you must be OP's friends and family. Funny story, I was gonna buy this house before he beat me to it." To be honest, there was nothing malicious in the way she would tell people, at least I didn't detect any, and I used to be a detective. It was more like a funny anecdote that wasn't actually that funny, but the person with the anecdote has to make sure that the whole world has heard it. Like a Karen with a very tenuous story about a close encounter with a celebrity. But anyway, this went on for months and I was getting very tired of it, but I didn't want to seem rude. So I let Karen carry on with her unfunny anecdote about how she almost bought my house. Though never elaborating on why she never did. To this day, I have no idea why she didn't buy the house, and what's more confusing is that all the houses in the cul-de-sac were the exact same. Another aspect to the story, and this one is really on me, is that I rarely ever lock my doors, even when I go out shopping. Sure, if I'm going to be away for most of the day, I will lock them up, but if I'm only gone for an hour or so, I won't even bother. I know what you're thinking, but what if you get robbed? Well, in my experience, if someone wants to rob your house, locking the doors is not gonna stop them. I can also tell you that it's very rare that you will end up getting robbed in the first place. Larceny at a private residence is not as common as people think. This whole phrase about not being able to leave your front doors unlocked is a myth in my opinion. You are no safer now as you would have been 100 years ago, it was just that we are a lot more saturated with news and events, and in my years of leaving my front door unlocked, I've never once been robbed. Even after I tell you this story though, once the Karen issue was resolved, I'll still go out and leave my front door unlocked. However, there was a brief moment in my life where I was so paranoid that I would lock my doors even when in the house, and here is why. So one day I go out for my usual shopping trip. It normally only takes me about 20 minutes as I really hate shopping and like to get it done as quickly as possible. I will head out to the nearest supermarket, grab everything I want and then leave. I won't even stop to mull over buying cheaper brands or if something on offer is really worth it. So then I get back from my shopping trip and everything is dumped in the boot of my car because I so badly want to get out of the shop as fast as I can. I won't even bother bagging the stuff first. When I get home, I can take all the time I want to put things in bags. So anyway, I head into the house to the kitchen, where I keep a bag of bags on top of the fridge. Nothing clicks as out of the ordinary just yet until I get to the kitchen and find Karen standing at my fridge with a jar of frankfurters in her hand. At first, I'm a little taken aback. I was not expecting anyone to be in my kitchen, so when I see Karen standing in front of the fridge snacking on my food, I freak out. I start shouting at her to get out of my house, and she is panicking, stuffing the hot dogs back into the fridge and hurrying down the corridor. Arms and hands flapping all over the place, trying to say sorry and coming up with whatever random excuse. She then gets outside and turns to me, saying that she was only after a cup of milk and did not think there was any harm in it. I thought it was strange that she thought a jar of sausages was a milk carton, but whatever, no harm, no foul. I obviously apologized for losing my cool, which was a bad mistake as I had only just increased Karen's power with one simple word, but we went our separate ways and I got my shopping put away. It was only a matter of weeks before the next event though. She did not even leave a good enough cooling off period before deciding to invade my privacy again. One winter while I was chilling in my inflatable hot tub, they're a lot cheaper than getting a proper one and work just the same, drinking a glass of whiskey and enjoying a stoogie, I needed to hit the head. I know that there are going to be those of you that would say, just go in the hot tub, and all I have to say to you is, ugh, gross, you grot bag. So I get out into the freezing air and run upstairs to use the toilet. Just as I flush the chain, I hear splashing and excited noises. I look out the window and down into my garden and I see Karen there with her son Kyle Jr. lazing in my hot tub. I was not happy, so I run downstairs, nearly slipping on a puddle in the kitchen, and start yelling at this woman and her son to get the hell out of my hot tub. I was less polite than before. This was the second time they had invaded my privacy. She was telling me to calm down. She thought it would be okay as we are all neighbors and all. Her son was telling me to chill, and I just get this overwhelming urge to slog Kyle Jr. in his silly bloated face. I tell Karen that it's generally considered good manners to ask first before helping yourself to someone else's hot tub. Eventually her and her son tiptoe over to the freezing concrete back to their house. How did they get into my garden in the first place? I know there's gonna be at least one person who's gonna ask. And well, they have a bloody gate. I've never noticed a gate before, I never thought to look. So the next day I hammer a plank of wood across that gate and seal it off for good. Karen was not happy about this, claiming that I had vandalized her property and that she was gonna call the police. To which I graciously told her that this fence was considered my property, just as the opposite fence was considered my neighbor's property, and that if she called my good friends at the station, she will most likely get charged with damage to personal property. At the same time, I can have her brought up on charges of trespassing. I had already given a refusal of entry, I was well within my rights. I think I must have struck a nerve bringing all this jargon and law into the conversation to denounce her, and like any wild animal, a Karen is mostly deadly when cornered. Karen was really out to get me now, and there were no rules she wasn't willing to break, no line she was not willing to cross. It was all the little things that she did to make my life difficult, but in ways that made it near impossible to prove it was her. When I went out, I would come back to find my door left wide open, but no sign that anyone had gone into the house. So I had to start locking my door finally. Which was annoying because it meant I had to remember to pick up my keys before I went out, and the number of times I locked myself out of the house was very frustrating. I would find my letters pulled out of the letterbox and strewn about the garden. I'm pretty sure there are crows out there that have lined their nest with my energy bill, which is fine, they can pay for it. I had to set up a PO box just to get my mail safely. The worst thing that Karen did, but I couldn't prove it, was that she punctured my inflatable hot tub, and it was a pretty big gash and the garden was flooded. Hers was too, which was a small amount of satisfaction, but now I had to fork out to get the hot tub fixed, and it's not cheap to patch a hole that size. I had spoken to a few buddies of mine that were lawyers, and they told me that I couldn't do anything unless I had proof it was her. It was very unlikely that a judge would even authorize a restraining order for her behavior, so I was stuck until I could catch her on CCTV, which was more money I had to fork out in the end, so I decided for the cheaper option and set up dummy cameras everywhere. That worked just as well, and I no longer ran into any more Karen sabotage. The war was far from over though. I did not know it at the time, but Karen had one more trick up her sleeve. Several months went by without an issue, and I thought things were finally over and Karen had learned to behave herself, but there was another issue. A Karen never learns. So I get back from a trip to the gym, and at this point I thought I was safe to leave my door unlocked once more, but how wrong I was I would find out very soon. So I get back from the gym, and just as I'm about to open the door, I can hear my TV. Someone was in my house watching my TV without a care that I could be home at any minute. At first I thought maybe it's a friend that came over, so I was out and settled in and waited for me. Most of my mates knew that I left my door unlocked and knew I would not mind too much if they let themselves in while they waited for me. It's pretty much the same for them, though I tend to message before letting myself in. Anyway, I head to the living room and see Karen and Kyle Jr. looking like pigs in poop. Karen sees me and starts going off at me almost immediately. She was clearly expecting this and she was ready, her phone in her hands and calling the police before I had the chance to say or do anything. She is there shouting down the phone for the police to come while Kyle Jr. is doing his utmost best to square up to me and manhandle me out of the house. I'm having none of it and they clearly never realized that I was an ex-police officer. So then Kyle Jr. tried to force me out of my own home, so then I pull out some quick defensive techniques and have him in an arm lock before he realizes what's going on. Karen is screaming for real now, demanding that I let go of her son and all sorts of things. I tell her I want her out of my house first, but she is sticking to her guns, she has a plan and is completely convinced it's gonna work. The cops arrive my house after Karen called them before things escalate way out of control and Karen is running up to them. She is demanding that I be arrested for trespassing on her property and harming her son. I've let him go at this point, but you would think I had broken his arm off by the way he was nursing it. I explained to the boys what was going on and they are looking a little dubious. Next thing I know, Karen is pulling out a property deed and on it was her name, not mine. She claimed that I was an intruder and a criminal that broke into her house. I am absolutely stunned, speechless, and no idea how this could have happened. There was no way the property belonged to Karen. I had gotten it from the estate agents and had attorneys run through the contract, surveyors estimate the value, and everything you can imagine. But that's when I noticed something. It was the wrong type of property deed. You see, there are several different types of deeds for different situations and properties. A person renting a home would not get a general warranty deed, they would get a lease and release deed. What Karen had in her hands was a common recoveries deed. The type of deeds bailiffs get so that they cannot be sued for theft when repossessing your home and cars. I don't think the boys realized this though, as they carted me out and away to the station. I cooperated because arguing was not gonna get me anywhere except a trip to the overnight jail cell. People don't realize this, but if you stay calm and cooperate with the police, your problems usually will be resolved in no time. These are trained professionals, they know all about how evidence works and they are not gonna throw the book at you just on the words of a Karen, they would lose their jobs. It also helps if you have served in the force before. They heard me out, took my statement and sent me on my way with an apology. The boys then give me a ride back to my house as they are now very curious about Karen and where she got the deed from. Strangely enough, Karen was in my house getting themselves comfy on my couch in front of my TV. The boys go knock on the door and Kyle Jr. answers and is immediately arrested. The look on his face makes me smile still. They head in looking for Karen and I linger about the door waiting to also see her face and make some very fond memories from it, while the boys are poking around upstairs looking for her and in the back. I smell something. It's a very distinct smell that you get pretty used to in the force and you can recognize it like a shark picking up a drop of blood from a mile away. I inform the boys and we quickly realize the smell is coming from the basement. The stink of weed when they opened the door was enough to get anyone high off second-degree contact. When the cops went into the basement, Karen must have been so surprised and what followed was a lot of shouting and arguing. Eventually they brought Karen out in handcuffs and an ever-present cloud of weed smoke around her head and eyes more bloodshot than I'd ever seen. Next thing I know, there are several police vans pulling up and teams of our boys in blue bringing up bush after bush after bush after bush. Karen and Kyle Jr. had turned their basement into a hydroponics farm. My guess is that they wanted to expand their little farm into my basement as well, which was why she so badly wanted to have my home. Turns out she had been harassing her other neighbor on the other side as well. Karen and Kyle Jr. ended up going away for a very long time. Not only for the growing of weed in their basement, but the forged deed they pulled out earned them even more time behind bars. I can safely say that the cul-de-sac has become a very pleasant place to live without Karen on the street, and I can go out, leave my doors unlocked if I wish, without any more threats to finding some random stranger helping themselves to my snacks and my home entertainment setup. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you would have been in this situation and faced with such a crazy entitled Karen, what would you have done? I think the first time I would have found this Karen in my home, I would have instantly called the police. I would not have been as patient as OP, that's for sure. Either way, let us know in the comments what you would have done, because I'm very curious about what you have to say. The next one was posted by user Needlework Reverie and it is titled Condo Association sent a letter citing inappropriate bylaws to restrict my kid from doing basically anything. My soon-to-be 7-year-old is a good kid who is very energetic and active. I sent her out to play in the courtyard with the other kids while I'm cooking dinner in the evenings to play. She is mostly going around and around on her scooter on the sidewalks, playing on the grass or sometimes climbing the spruce trees. She is very respectful to any adult that she comes across, if talkative. The development is pretty evenly split between young, diverse families and white boomers who bought it in the 70s. They are polite and friendly to me and my husband, but yell at my daughter if we are not around, telling her that she cannot scoot around the courtyard, play on the grass, scoot around the parking lot or climb trees. They want her to go play in the play area that is out of sight of the unit, has not been mulched in forever, leaving the equipment very high off the ground, overrun by ants and yellow jackets. A rope climbing structure is so old and worn out that the nylon rope is pretty much gone, leaving the metal cables exposed. I have brought the state of the play area to the attention of various board members in April and May, but nothing has been done. They have cited 2 bylaws which are not applicable to the situation. One talks about keeping children out of trash rooms, laundry rooms and storage areas / not biking through those places. The other bylaw reads as such: no noxious or offensive trait or activity shall be carried on within the project or within any condominium unit situated thereon, nor shall anything be done therein or thereon which may be or become an annoyance to the neighborhood or the owners. No nuisances shall be permitted within the condominium project, nor shall any use or practice be permitted which is or becomes a source of annoyance to the members or which interfere with the peaceful use and possession thereof by the members. I took this to mean no gang-related activity, no drug dealing, no durian, don't cook meth. My downstairs neighbor received a similar letter, and I'm going to ask the parents of the other kids they play with if they have received one too. There is a county noise ordinance in place, but it does not go into effect until 10 p.m. My kid rides her scooter on the sidewalks and in the parking lot, never indoors. She plays non-destructive games on the grass, she climbs trees. The only people that are being obnoxious are the seniors. So, what should I do? Bear in mind, tomorrow is the first day of summer vacation and she's going to be around much more than she was when school was in session. The next one is an update for the same story from September 19, 2019. The board meeting was yesterday. When the floor was open to owner commentary, I raised my hand and told them that we had moved in about 6 months ago and what I liked about the community before telling them about the letter and what it said. I ended with, when I got this letter, it made me feel like the community is not a welcoming place for young families. It turns out that the letter was sent out without the full knowledge and consent of the board. In fact, they had no idea that it was sent out. The president of the board was livid that I and 6 other families that I know of received this letter and told us that our kids were allowed and encouraged to play on their scooters and bikes on the sidewalk. They don't want the kids to play in the parking lots for their safety. They also asked that kids stay out of plantings and off the grass. Then she referred us to the playground that has several safety concerns and mentions the new layers of wood chips that had been put down at the beginning of summer. I told her that while we appreciate the new layer of wood chips, I still had some safety concerns. The end of the slide is about 2 feet off the ground, and when my 3-year-old goes down, she shoots off the end like a cannon. The nylon covering on the climbing structure has come off and I'm worried my kid's fingers could get hurt. There is a strange lurid green fungus the size of a hockey puck by the swings, and when you poke it, it lets off spores and oozes. They will have a contractor come out to give an estimate to fix the playground. The person that sent the letter was counting on us to be intimidated by official stationery, not to talk to each other, and discouraged by the inconvenient board meetings. I am especially upset that 6 or 7 families that I know of received this letter, and 4 of them were renters / people of color. One person is a single man whose nephew visited him for a weekend and brought his bike. I plan on joining the board once I've been here a bit longer and implement community building events so that people don't feel alone. Final update to the story. A friend from college is a paralegal at a corporate law firm and told their boss, a real estate attorney, about what was going on at the time, and he agreed to do a call for free for advice. The strategy that we hammered out was that I would write back asking them to show me what my kid had broken and to give me an annotated list. I also spoke to my uncle, who is the president of his condo board in a different state, about how to address the board and do some community building. The goals were as follows. Kids having a safe, supportive environment to grow up and explore in, also for adults to stop yelling at them. Also, a new safe playground. Trees they don't want kids to climb need to have their limbs trimmed to above head height. Also, the pandemic lockdown was interesting in our community. For a while in 2020, no one was allowed in the common areas at all, which was rough. The board tried very hard to push more stringent regulations than even the state was, and ended up having to yield to the fact that people were going to walk around the sidewalks masked because they still haven't invented teleporters. Autumn 2020, they finally got 3 people in to take the limbs of the spruce trees to about 5 to 6 feet off the ground and acted like this was a punishment for not keeping our kids off the trees. We did not want them climbing them either. The funny thing about free will is how people are just going to do what they want anyway. I also had to listen to a grown man inform me that I did not know how to control my kids in a Zoom meeting. This is when I asked him if he had always done what his mother wanted him to when she wanted him to. The subject changed after that. Spring 2021, they put up a new climbing structure that will wear much better. They've also been mulching the playground in the spring and the autumn. Mulch gets the strangest mushrooms. Our current issue is just making sure that the property management company and the board are aware that children are a protected class and have the same rights as adults, such as the peaceful enjoyment of the property. A child's definition of what that means is different than an adult's, but not wrong. We've been teaching the kids to respond to nasty seniors talking to them by just saying, "That was mean and rude," boldly. And it is not rude or mean to inform someone of their behavior. We have not been getting any more letters about inappropriate children. I guess being shamed by a child for your bad behavior is more effective than any other idea we have come up with. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.